Hello. Welcome to another vulnerability. So today I'm going to be talking about two things related to sudo. Okay, so these are two files. It's config files for the system to understand who is allowed to sudo and what they should be doing. So for one of them, it is etc sudoers. This is your config file for the command sudo. And what it does is it basically says who can run sudo and what are they allowed to do. If we look at etc sudoers, so let's go ahead and check etc sudoers, you'll see there's a lot of text. Most of it is commented out. But down here, we have things that are not commented out. And this format looks pretty confusing. So let's go over it. In the config, you see these lines that follow this format here. So the first is the user that this rule pertains to. And then you have a bunch of other things. This is the host name of the machine they're on. This is the user and the group that they're running the command as. And then lastly, the command that they are running. So this specifies who is allowed to run what on the system as sudo. Okay? This user could be an individual user, or it could be a group. If you have a % sign in front, then it refers to a group. So for example, we'll see here that root is just root, but admin and sudo are both groups, so they have that % in front. Additionally, sometimes you'll see that before this command, there's a modifier, specifically no password. What this means is that normally when I run sudo, it prompts for a password. So if I put no password here, it just does it. It doesn't prompt for the user's password, which is helpful for red team because now they can do things as sudo without actually knowing the user's password. Usually this is a red flag, and usually you want to address that. And another thing you'll notice is that the lines you see here look a lot simpler than this. That's because they use the word all to just represent everything. So this means that sudo can just do everything on any hostname as any user/group. So all is very frequent in these config files. And also the permissions are going to be 440. We only want root to be able to see this. Note that root can't even modify this file because it's not a 6, it's a 4. They can only read. And the reason is there's a special command called vsudo, which allows us to edit it safely. It's going to do a check to make sure we don't break sudo, because if you break it, the whole system's going to break, okay? So that is etc sudoers. So for red team, we can just backdoor it by adding new rules. Add more lines to etc sudoers, and you'll see that you can do shenanigans. So for example, I could have my user do anything with no password. That'd be pretty bad. So as blue team, what we need to do is we need to be able to look at etc sudoers and be able to understand whether these lines are legit or not. So look for the uncommented ones and then determine if it's legit. Usually if you see no password, that's pretty bad. If you see all, that's a bit suspicious. But there are certain ones that are common in pretty much any system, which is root should be able to do everything. Admin and sudo should be able to do everything. And then you also see this include door etc sudoers, which basically means also include any rules from files in this directory, which I will talk about later. So that is that. Okay, makes sense? Cool. So now let's talk about this directory etc sudoers. So this is pretty much the same idea as etc sudoers, except any file in here is going to be included as part of etc sudoers. Normally, this should be empty, but red team can add their own files here. And it's the same idea as before, where you want to create backdoor commands like this in those files, and it will just include it in your sudo config. But you can do some more sneaky things. For example, naming the file readme. People may think that it's just a readme file, it's not going to be malicious, and they'll ignore it. You could also just name it an empty space, which is pretty funny because then it becomes difficult to actually locate that file because it's just a space in the name. And another thing is that on cloud environments like AWS machines, you'll see this file tends to appear, 90 cloud init users, which is the sudo config for those cloud machines. Now imagine you have a machine that is not part of the cloud, therefore does not need this file. Red team could just make a file with that same name and put their backdoor commands in there to try and fool the blue team. So as blue team, what we want to do is thoroughly investigate any file in this folder, because normally this folder should not have anything in it. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's test our skills using these commands here, or these vulnerabilities. So again, I want to pick the modules. I'm going to do sudo all fake sudoed vim sudo and sudo user. Okay. And if I run my checker, oh, that's not good. Vim checker sudo. Okay. Wait, let me check. Oh, I just picked. Sorry. I forgot to set it up. My bad. So we pick, then we set up, and then we check. There, that's better. And for this sudo all vulnerability, I haven't implemented the check yet because I'm not sure what the best way for that is. So we can just ignore it for now. But we have 3 more we need to look for. So let's start by looking at etc sudoers. First, I just want to make sure that its permissions are correct. 440, yep, that looks right to me. Now let's modify it. And we see we have root, admin, sudo, that's normal. Oh, then we have these two. So sudo can do anything with can run vim with no password, so that's not good. I'm gonna get rid of that. And actually, I need to use vsudo in order to do this. Okay. So let's cut that. And this Joestar user can run anything without a password by using sudo. So of course we want to get rid of that too. And save. So now if I look at etc sudoers, and I go down to the bottom, it's gone. Awesome. But we also want to check sudoers.d. And we can see it has two things. It has a readme file, and it has that empty file I was talking about. So if we were to look at any of these, so readme, blah, 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 blah. Oh, this is legitimately a readme. There's nothing malicious here because it's all commented out, so that's good. But this space one annoys me. So let's try getting the space. Okay. And we see it's that everyone can run anything with no password, which is obviously really bad. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And so by doing that, now we can run the checkout and boom, we've patched everything. So that's great. We did it. So once again, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.